And she took my hand, and the minute she held my hand, I wanted to say the other F word. And and I looked at her, and she said to me, "I'm going to say this a few times, so please don't try to understand this the first time. We have found a type of cancer called inflammatory breast cancer, and it's aggressive, and we need to do something about it immediately."
Welcome to the Women Talk podcast, where ordinary women share their extraordinary stories. We would love for you to share your story on our podcast. Go to www.womentalk.ca and apply to share your story. And now let's welcome your host, founder, and CEO of Women Talk, Bridget Lessard-Diel.
Welcome back to the Women Talk podcast, where ordinary women share their extraordinary stories. Today, my guest is Robin Matrai. Robin is a powerful warrior. She has found a way to function as a mom, an entrepreneur, an artist, a wife, and doing it all while battling lupus and stage 4 inflammatory breast cancer. Robin is flat, fit, and fabulous, and an inspiration to us all. Her story matters.
I would like you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, settle your body, and prepare your mind's palette as you are stepping into my journey of vulnerability, grit, and hope. My journey starts, as most journeys do, with a birth, my birth. I was born a little too early in the fall of 1974. I thrived despite the risks of premature birth. I met milestones as expected and lived a childhood that was different from other children, a story for another day, and graduated from high school class valedictorian. In my first years of college, I felt exhausted, depleted, and thought this was just the nature of being a college student living away from home for the first time. I worked 2 jobs and went to school full time. Of course, I was tired. Then I developed a horrifying lumpy rash that was the shape of a butterfly across my nose and cheeks. That was enough to prompt any 21-year-old woman to get herself to the walk-in clinic ASAP. This was putting a big cramp on my social life. The walk-in doctor diagnosed me on the spot with lupus, the disease of 1,000 faces. Well, it was on my face, and he indicated that I had at least 10 good years. I was gobsmacked, shocked, gutted. I slowly walked out of the clinic and watched him get into his Porsche and drive away. Arrogant bastard, I muttered. Time went on. I managed the day-to-day roles of lupus, up and down, fatigue, joint pain, rashes, ulcers, and got to a place where I could live with it on the back burner, have it be quiet, and not be the main event in my life. I married, progressed in my career as a social worker, had our first child with success, which built our confidence to have another child with the same level of attention to keeping my lupus quiet. That is when the ride came to a jarring stop. My body was starting to reject the pregnancy. I was placed on bed rest, then admitted to the hospital for early delivery. Our girl was born quickly, scrawny, and without complications. We had made it. Oh, another birth and a healthy baby. That was a close one. Days blended into weeks, and my body was not recovering. Wasn't it supposed to equalize, come back to center, be normal? My exhaustion hung on me like a leaded shroud, and my breathing became increasingly labored over the next weeks. My lungs popped and crackled. Was this a bad cold? My legs started to swell to twice the size of the other. My urine like coffee. Lupus and I were in a debate of the century over the pros and cons of basic life needs. Lupus shouted, "I win." While in hospital, managing my selfish thoughts around finally being able to rest and not take care of my infant and toddler, Lupus screamed again, "We are still playing." My kidneys had failed. My blood was unable to produce new red blood cells required for breathing. My lungs were compressed, and my heart was working overtime to carry the load. Bang, bang, bang. The sound of my blood pressure behind my eyes, unable to hear other people speaking to me. Lupus inserted its petulant hand again and livened things up. Internal bleeding unleashed and sent to intensive care. This back and forth battle went on for 8 weeks. Eventually, I won. I won 2 years of immunosuppression therapy, a very controlled environment, but I was back on my feet. I was the poster child for lupus, the disease of 1,000 faces, and somehow had coaxed it back into being quiet. Time, again, has this wonderful way of soothing the injuries of the past. And my future planning came back. I grew my business into a successful and respected company when a new player entered my game. June 2016, I went for my regular checkup with my team of specialists when I noted that I had a thickening of the skin in my right breast. I thought lupus was coming out for a little playtime. So I was sent for a mammogram and ultrasound. No lump. Results, less than 2% chance of cancer. You can come back in 6 months. Thankfully, my primary doctor saw the signs and sent me to Breast Health. September 2016, I was diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer, stage 3C. 6 cycles of chemotherapy, radical non-sparing mastectomy, lymph node removal, 33 days of radiation, aromatase inhibitors, injections every 3 months, and we had it under control for a while. Then lesions developed in my spine, lungs, adrenal glands, and the big one, my liver. December 2018, further intervention with internal radiation to my liver, which then led to a rebound effect where I was in palliative care for a week. Was my life over? Now, take another deep breath. My story is not a story of sadness. It is a gift that came in a crumpled and dirty bag called chronic illness, but inside was the undeniable shine of hope and possibilities. Possibility 1, being flat. Incredibly easy for me. I can wear what I want without worry. Movement is easier. Surgery, not an option for me. And I like who I am. I know who I am now. This is real. This is my life. I am confident in my femininity and will own it as it is. Possibility 2, my hope. My hope is the knowledge that I have an incredible network of doctors, friends, and family. This is important, but it's also important to know that your own narrative, that self-talk, will make or break you. Those in your support system will try their best to be there for you, but how you perceive the situation will ultimately open or close yourself to support. And possibility number 3, live fabulously. Prior to cancer, I started painting. Now I really paint. I want to use my art as a way to translate hope and inspiration to others. I've actually carved out time for my health and fitness through entering small competitions to provide an opportunity to goal set and give my body the tools to combat the side effects of daily chemotherapy. Spending time with those that add to my bucket of hope is incredibly important. Sharing over a special meal, dancing to live music, dressing in a wow outfit, dyeing your hair, bring the rose bush inside because you want to watch blooms longer. create that warrior within, meditate, and loving those that will accept you as you are, flat, fit, and fabulous.
In 1996, futurist Rolf Jensen predicted that the highest paid person in this century would be the storyteller, regardless of occupation. Well, he was right. One of the best ways to grow your business is by sharing your story. And the best and safest place to share your story is at Women Talk. Become a Women Talk member today and change not only your life, but the lives of the women around you. Go to www.womentalk.ca/membership for more information. I love this. Flat, fit, and fabulous.
Yeah.
Did you ever use the other F word a few times?
Oh, yeah.
So, tell me, I was wondering when you said, I was like, oh, the F words. Tell me a little bit more about lupus. What is lupus?
So lupus is an autoimmune disorder, and it's essentially when your body perceives your organs as an invader. So when I had my major lupus flare after the birth of our second daughter, my body responded by saying, hey, that red blood cells, those are invaders. Let's destroy them. So my red blood cells that were coming out of my bone marrow, as soon as they were produced, would implode. And so then it attacked my kidneys, saying, oh, these don't look like they belong, and started to shut my kidneys down. So there was a lot going on in that way.
Were you like almost in a coma kind of place, or what do you look like when you have these huge flare-ups?
Well, when I had that huge flare up, I was awake the whole time, which I might have appreciated a coma because I was in intensive care.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, everybody is separated by a sheet in the ICU. And I could hear everybody else's machines, the beeps, the back beating from the lung therapy specialists for people who are in comas, just to get the lungs moving properly. And it felt like a war zone. I had all these wires hooked up to me. I had things going in my neck, my arm, electrodes everywhere, and I couldn't move my body because I had lost all my gross motor control.
So what were you doing with your mind? What was going in your head?
My mind was everywhere but there. I was thinking about my family. I was thinking about my newborn, how I just wanted to hold her. I was in postpartum still at that point. So thinking about my 2-year-old at home and mommy not being there. And I just went into that kind of social worker part of me, and I started taking care of people from my bed.
Typical mom.
Yeah. And, I just, I was on a lot of heavy duty pain medication. And the one, I kept calling it Bin Laden. But that wasn't the name of it. And I can't recall what the name of it is now, but I would ask for my Bin Laden, and the doctor thought it was hilarious.
Oh, that's funny. So did you ever get to a place where you thought, this is it, I'm dying now? Or did you always stay positive knowing this will pass?
I never felt that that was the end. I remember before I went into ICU, I was in isolation because of my autoimmune issues. I got to have my own room. And I remember sitting and looking out the window, meditative, unconsciously. And 2 hours went by, and I suddenly had this understanding of when maybe you see elderly people sitting and looking out a window in a retirement home, and they look just kind of lost in their thoughts and passive. Mm-hmm. How time goes by so quickly. But in my mind, I was running and doing and feeling, I was young too, like I was in my 20s, and feeling a little ripped off that I couldn't be outside, and but I never felt like I was going to die.
What was the hardest part when you went through your really tough episode of lupus? What was the hardest thing about going through something like that?
The hardest was not being able to be connected the way I wanted to be with my family every day.
Mm-hmm. Did the kids come in to visit you?
Yeah, they did. And, you know, it was difficult to hold my little snuggly baby. Like, all I wanted to do was just smell her head. But they would come in, and we would do, with my older daughter, she was a toddler, and we made little arts and crafts together. And she took it all in stride. Mm-hmm. In fact, when I was released on day passes to visit for a couple of hours, she built out of blocks in our living room the city of Calgary. And then there was this one really tall building. And I asked her, well, what is that tall building? And she said, oh, that's where you live, Mommy.
Oh, wow.
And you know, I was like, oh, my heart, you know. And so that was difficult. Mm-hmm. For her. She took it in stride. It was all, she was good. It was just when I did come home, she asked if I was going to live at her house now.
Oh, wow. That must have been really hard.
Oh, I was just like, it was, I finally could release all of the emotion when I finally did get home. Mm. And, you know, I was well enough to be discharged, but not well enough, you know, and so that was a long road of recovery and still being a parent.
So how did you cope with that, coming home and having a toddler and a baby? Like, that's overwhelming, even when you're like completely healthy.
Dora the Explorer became our best friend. I felt like I parented from the couch for a long period of time. My husband had some time off from work to be able to support a bit, but he eventually did have to go back to work. Mm-hmm. So I would tuck my 2-year-old behind my knees and belt her in so that I would know if she moved. And we plug in Dora, and I would have my infant right down on the floor, easy for me to pick her up. And we watched Dora.
Wow.
And
do you have family in town where you live?
Or? No, all my family lives outside of the city. And so we really just had us to figure it out. I had a couple of good friends, but we were all kind of in the same position. You know, we were all in the same milestones of life, young families, all trying to do what we could do to make it through ourselves. So to have leaned on them would have been difficult for them too, because they had their own babies and starting out pieces as well. So, you know, we mired our way through it, and we made it. And part of being in hospital too, my curiosity is maybe too much sometimes, but I learned a lot. I probably have some sort of doctorate in something now.
Oh gosh, I'm sure. If there would have been one thing that people could have done for you at that point in time, what would have been the most helpful thing that society, your friends, or whomever could have done for you?
The most helpful would have been to come and engage my children in activities and play with me still there.
Mm.
Like, not take them away from me, but be there and give them some of that energy that I wanted to give to them,
Oh yeah, for sure.
you know.
So,
And
so,
yeah,
so you made it. You make it through. You get back
yes,
to full health.
yeah,
Pretty.
relative full health.
Yeah.
From the outside and from any other doctor's perspective, I am picture perfect. You've never
But
had anything
before,
wrong with you.
uh, so now you're feeling healthy and you get hit with the C word.
I know. I
So
know.
when you heard those words, did you know right away it was cancer, or did you
No.
think it was just a lupus? So when you heard those words, what happened to you? What happened to your
Well,
mind?
I I was numb. I was sitting um, on a hospital bed with a gown and waiting for the breast health surgeon to come in. And she took my hand, and the minute she held my hand, I wanted to say the other F word. And and I looked at her, and she said to me, "I'm going to say this a few times, so please don't try to understand this the first time." And I had my notebook with me, because I always gather information because I need to read it after I hear it. And so she said, "We have found a type of cancer called inflammatory breast cancer, and uh, it's aggressive, and we need to do something about it immediately." And she said it to me like 3 or 4 times,
Mm-hmm.
just so that I could take it in. And there was a nurse with her, and so I had a cry, kind of one of those panicky, short upper breathing cries. And then I gathered myself and I said, "Okay, now you have to tell me that again."
Mm-hmm.
And she did, and she was amazing. She took so much time with me to process.
Ah, that's awesome.
Uh, yeah, and then she said, "Okay, we are always here for you, no matter where you are in your journey. Please, if you need something, come talk to us," which I thought was amazing.
What do you say to a friend or a sister or a mom that you love who gets that diagnosis?
You ask them where they are at.
Meaning
So,
in their
meaning,
acceptance, or what
yeah,
do you mean by
I
that?
would, where, if when people say that they're sorry, or it's something that you hear a lot, "I'm so sorry to hear that." It kind of becomes um, kind of what's the word I'm looking for? I have like chemo sieve brain. Um,
Like it's maddening to you, or
Not maddening.
comforting, or
It just
annoying?
you become desensitized,
Yeah,
because you're like, "Okay, just finish saying what you have to say." Okay. Okay.
yeah.
And then you feel like you're comforting them,
Mm-hmm.
and you're
Totally
taking
can
on
see
their
that.
emotions, right? And
I can
so,
so see that.
yeah, yeah,
That's a brilliant comment from you. You know
yeah.
that?
So when people asked me, "Where are you? What do you need?" Sometimes I would say, "I don't know what I need right now." And they would then kind of ask permission to step into my vulnerability. So they wouldn't just assume that I needed food, or they just, what I loved about the supports that I received was people would check in. "Does this work for you?" So they were meeting my needs versus maybe their feeling of, oh my gosh, is this the last time I'm going to talk to you? Oh, I need to get a visit in with you before you get really sick. Because people hear cancer and they immediately, especially where I was stage 3C. And in the world, stage 4 means, oh my gosh, you're terminal.
Yeah.
You're not going to make it very long. I want to connect with you. I want to be with you before you're not you. Right? People get anxious, and because there's so many sad stories of quick demise and deterioration, and the person not being the person that they were.
Yeah, for sure.
But on the inside, they are still the same person. I'd like to say, like, even though I went through all these changes physically, because I got the big puffy face and the weird round tummy from all the medications, I still was the same person inside.
And you're very inspiring, by the way. So this might sound weird, but what did lupus and cancer give you?
Well, lupus prepared me for cancer, if that makes sense. So lupus is like a ping pong ball, just goes bing, 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 bing everywhere. And you're like, oh, what's next? What's next? What am I? It's unpredictable. It has the nature of unpredictability. However, once you understand your body and work through what works for you, it can be managed. And so I learned how to be in tune with my body. I learned how to manage it. Had I not had that experience, I would not have gone to the doctor as soon as I did, because I did not have a lump. I had a thickening of the skin. And because I was in tune with my body with lupus, I thought it was a lupus reaction, because sometimes it can attack your skin. So even though it was in my breast, I had been trained by, the popular information shared out there is, if there's a lump, go see your doctor, do your breast checks for lumps. I checked my breasts all the time for lumps. I had no lump. It was truly in the skin like cotton candy. So moving into the cancer piece of it, it became easy for me to manage the medical aspect of it, which can be very overwhelming for people who their first introduction to the medical intensity is through cancer, because there's a lot of information coming at you. So my lupus experience prepared me for my cancer experience, which then really just gelled my reality that I need to live as presently as I can. Which everybody should have that mindset, because the reality is, I think we're all mortal, and our day will come, and it can happen in the blink of an eye. I feel that I have this path laid out in front of me full of possibilities. It was always there.
I just love how you live your life. You are a true warrior. There's this picture of you that I absolutely adore. You are topless with a sword and the wrist guards, and that picture is so you.
Oh,
it's so you. You are such an incredible, inspiring warrior, and I'm personally very grateful that you are part of our tribe.
Well, I'm happy to be part of the Women Talk tribe as well.
Now, have you had any thoughts in writing a book?
To say that it has not run through my mind would be a fib. So yes.
and if people, but you do a blog right now, like
I'm starting a blog.
Where can people find you?
They can find me at my name, robinmatrai.com.
All right, robinmatrai.com, and we'll have that in the link below so that people can go find you and follow you in your absolutely inspiring journey.
Thank you so much.
You have a burning desire to share your story with our audience? Apply to be on our podcast. To apply and find a full list of our podcasts, go to www.womentalk.ca.